This segment is brought to you by the Financial Educator, helping you take charge of your money and your future. Visit thefinancialeducator.co.za.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Money Matters. I'm your host for this evening, Muhammad Ali Kathri, standing in for Brother Imtiaz. Alhamdulillah. Listeners, Money Matters, everything to do with money, finance, your finance, navigating through the world, how to avoid any debts, how to prioritize. Because at the end of the day, listeners, when it comes to finances, as much as we want to say that, it's only materialistic, only dunyawi, but it plays a big part within our day-to-day life. And alhamdulillah, very important show, Money Matters, especially during this festive season where we tend to be a little bit lost-scope when it comes to spending. We get engulfed in the gatherings, we get engulfed in the lekkerheid, the markets and so forth. And then we start losing our ways. We find ourselves entering into January. We worry about our finances. We worry about, how we're going to get through the month. And this show is to navigate through that, not to fall into the trap of always spending and being conscious of your spending. Yes, listeners, you're listening to the Voice of the Cape on 91.3 FM stereo, taking us along across the globe on vocfm.co.za, or by downloading the VOC app on the Google Play Store or the iOS platform. Yes, listeners, the date of today is Tuesday, 25th of Jamadu Thani, 1447, corresponding to the 16th of December, 2025. Listeners, the waqt of Maghrib will be at 1957 for today. And listeners, we are back with our weekly financial fitness segment with the financial educator, Mr. Anwar Barnser, certified financial planner, award-winning debt counselor, and financial coach with 25 years of experience in banking, investments, and financial planning. Mr. Anwar, welcome to the show.
Hi, Salam Ali. And just so everyone knows, it is Ali. I'm not getting Imtiaz's name around tonight.
No, it's Ali for today.
Yes, you're good to be, Alhamdulillah, yes.
So I know it's been quite running now for a couple of weeks with regards to, the topic being debt detox. A lot of the time people are thinking, detox, how, normally go on a fitness detox, losing weight and so forth. But a debt detox, that's quite interesting. Like, yes. What does that mean? If you can maybe just recap on that.
Yeah, so maybe just to recap how we got here, right? So, yes. Of course, we're speaking about financial fitness, which is essentially how do you work with your money in a way that you are financially fit, not financially unhealthy.
Yes.
Right? And what does it mean? Number one, we started with awareness, meaning know your numbers, know where you currently stand, right? Know what your current money reality is, know what are your behaviors and personality that drives your money habits. Thereafter, we looked at setting your goals and establishing what are your values. So you decide what you're actually working towards and what matters most to you. We then went after that we went on how do you take control by setting a realistic budget. And last week we spoke about building your foundation, which is your emergency fund, which protects you in case of those life happening. So today we're on the next step, which is the debt detox. Yes. That you mentioned, right? So what exactly is a debt detox? Like you said, a debt detox, just like if you go for a health detox, you want to get rid of all those impurities, yes, all those toxic things in your body that's dragging your health down. So a debt detox is about clearing unhealthy debt habits. And I need to make it clear, you get what's called good debt and you get what's called bad debt, right? Notwithstanding the elephant in the room about riba, etc. Yes. But let's park that for 1 second and just make it universal, right? So we're looking at cleaning unhealthy debt habits, meaning you're going to stop adding new debt and you're going to start taking control of your life. And it's not just about the numbers. It's about the stress. It's about having sleep. It's about having the peace of mind. And ultimately, the goal is to move from survival mode to actually a clear plan where you can thrive. But we find many people are in that hole and they feel, how can I even move ahead?
Yeah.
Because I have a whole life to dig out. Never mind, I need to save, I need to invest, I want to achieve that goal when I'm sitting. And that is where your debt detox come in.
And you have this dark cloud just hovering over your head every time. You want to save up for a nice item, and then you get reminded, with regards to the interest and so forth. If it's more than, I think, 55 days, and then it's
correct.
added to that. And it just grows each time, and you can't even place a debt into the principal amount because, over time, maybe you said, okay, you know what, I'm just going to One day.
One day.
I'm going to start.
For now, I'll just make the minimum payments.
I'm just going to make the minimum.
Which barely covers the interest.
The interest, now that's the problem also, because you thought, okay, I'm paying each time, and I see this a lot with people with, other than with the cars and the balloon payment, but with houses as well. And they think they're really tackling in there, and then they're realizing, wait, man, I'm just tackling the interest rate now. I'm not even getting into the principal, the primary amount, and then you find yourself going, continuously paying, but never actually getting to the root of it.
And you see, what you're describing is not understanding how debt works. And that's the first thing, is you need to understand how debt works. You need to understand what is the debt that still, is there asset attached to it? Maybe it can still be justified. A house, a reasonable car, etc.
Yes.
Was it for business, generate income? But the problem is your toxic debt is that debt has nothing back in it. It was spent on pure consumption. So think your credit cards, your store accounts, your personal loans, your buy now, pay later, all those elements, right? And what's the big thing? The interest. 28% on most of those. And that is what you don't realize, is the interest, that 28%. If I can just for one moment just go on topic, I can clearly see how riba is destructive on those type of loans. Because you see paying, and you go nowhere. You borrow 100 rand, you have to end up paying back 200 rand. You never had 100 rand to begin with, where you're getting the 200 rand. So you go into the spiral, and the problem is not just the amount of money you borrow, it is the additional cost, it's the additional interest, it's all those things. And then that, once it piles on, then it's number one, then it's number two.
Ooh.
Eventually, you sit back and realize you actually need a detox.
And then tackle it early.
While
it's young,
Exactly.
So I just want to maybe talk from South African context now, and there's different demographics, and a lot of people started jobs or they're trying to improve their lifestyle and so forth. But I just want to know, how common is the debt stress in South African households, and from what you see?
Okay, so let's not take it from what I see. Let's take it from actual statistics.
Okay.
Right? So first, it is very common, and most importantly, across all income levels. In fact, firstly, approximately 40% of all credit holders, account holders, so there's about 27 million South African credit account holders, about 10 million, 40%, give or take, are one or more payments behind. So let's say almost half of South Africans are one or more payments behind, right? The National Credit Regulator estimates that 3 out of 4 households, just under 75%, are what they call over-indebted, meaning they cannot meet their monthly obligations, that they don't earn enough to cover their costs, right? Now, here's the kicker. You're going to think, but Anwar, people aren't earning, they don't have enough money.
Yes.
Take a guess which percentage carries the most amount of overdue debt. The highest 10% income bracket. The highest 10% income bracket has the most amount of outstanding overdue debt. Not amount owing, amount behind. Behind. So think about it. How does it make sense? Because the more you earn, the more the banks love you. You get the big car payments, you get the big bonds, you get the big credit card limits, you get the easy loans. So when you earn more, credit is more easily available. Number one. Number two, when you earn more, I've noticed a trend. You tend to be not as careful as tracking where your money goes.
Yes.
Because in your mind, it is enough. But because you're not tracking, very easily, I find that many high-income earners become over-indebted when they don't even realize it. It creeps up on you. It looks like a private banking card. It looks like a luxury car. It looks like a fantastic house. But deep down, you know what they're saying about the duck? The duck looks calm on top, but underneath that water is kicking. Yeah. So this is something we found. A good example also is the after effects of COVID. There are people to this day that still haven't recovered because that 1 year of falling behind. When you're already living month to month, how do you catch up, right? Yes. Another thing also post-COVID again, maybe you didn't suffer in COVID, but you bought a house or a car because the interest went very low. Yep. Subsequently, interest raised, and what happens? In order to pay for that, you have to take out more debt. Yes. So the problem is that why don't people seek help, you're asking? Because people feel ashamed. Yes. All right? They often suffer in silence. Most times when people come to me and say, Anwar, I've been going along for so long, I didn't want to say something. And the problem is most families are just 1 or 2 emergencies away from serious trouble. And what we know is debt stress is not just the numbers. It affects health. I know people have been hospitalized because of the stress. It affects relationship. I've dealt with divorces, right, as a result of debt. and work performance, absenteeism, all those type of things. So there's multiple negative effects rather than just I'm not paying my loan, because we take money is emotional.
Yeah.
And as much as receiving money brings happiness, owing money and not being able to pay brings an awful amount of anxiety and worry and stress. So that is what we ultimately want to get rid of, right? The numbers are numbers on a page, but what you feel is real. The stress you feel is real. The anxiety you feel is real. And ultimately the detox, yes, we're going to pay, but it's about taking that feeling of stress and anxiety and uneasy and the arguments in the family. That is actually what it's about.
You know, so I actually spoke to one of my friends, and he mentioned that he was looking at the car, right? And they said that even the vetting process isn't that rigorous anymore. He said he just needed a club card, and he said, okay, this is a short record, and that's enough to get a brand new car. Now, for me, that's very scary. Because it's like, shouldn't you be in a state, especially someone selling the car and so forth, don't you want to make sure that person can pay for the car? But now the process, the vetting process, it's not as rigorous with regards to checking the records, the credit record, and so forth. And he was able to get that new car.
Okay.
It's like, wow. Are they trying to make you feel like you can afford this car, propose to you the balloon payment, and now you're more, latched onto that payment on the longer run? Will they benefit more on that with regards to the balloon payment? So instead of spending 800,000, I'm just using an example, 800,000 on the car, you're going to be spending R1 million on that car.
But with the same payment.
With the same payment.
Because they gave you a balloon.
So is that like a tactic?
So let me. So I'm going to tell you a little secret.
Because for me, that's a bad debt, though.
So yeah, yes, it is. It's an asset, but you overstretch yourself.
Overstretch, yes.
Even if you buy a house, which is an asset, if you overstretch yourself, it then becomes a bad debt. A bad debt will have low interest. It will be manageable. It will be backed, yes, by asset. But if that asset is a luxury thing that's going to depreciate, it's no longer, then it's a bad debt. But let me take a step back. So firstly, any sort of lending is governed by something called the National Credit Act.
Okay.
Right? And regulated by the National Credit Act, which means there are guidelines in terms of determining whether somebody can afford to enter into a certain loan agreement or credit agreement. So there are laws there, right?
Okay.
But now let me flip the other, and they do enforce where necessary. So let me flip the script. Do you know when you go to a bank, when you go to a car dealership, when you go online, when you speak to a call center that offers loans, do you know they have a target? Their target is they need to give you a certain amount of loans in order for them to earn their target and their bonus and their commission.
So they have a commission structure on their side as well.
Like any other product. What people need to realize is that loans and debt and credit is a product, the most heavily marketed product in the world, right? And credit institutions are designed to sell it. Now, that's essentially what they're doing. What's the profit? The interest. Now, on the surface, nothing wrong with that. But when you are incentivized as an individual to give loans, I've seen where someone clearly couldn't afford it, and I've listened to phone calls of this call center when I see that person is doing everything possible to make this person qualify. Right? I've seen where somehow they will do anything to make you qualify. If you're going to a bank, if you're going to buy a car and you're nervous about getting finance, I can tell you a secret. They are going to try to do anything possible to give you that loan. What does that mean? Right? It means that there is room for overlooking certain things. There is room for granting what is known as reckless lending. Right? So there is such a thing as reckless lending. And I've seen it many times where creditors have provided loans to someone who is already in a position where they can't pay.
Yes.
But the person behind it is somebody chasing a target. And I've seen it too many times. Now, to be clear, not every lender, not every is irresponsible,
yeah.
But individual, it's natural. If you're incentivizing me to sell you something, it just so happens that thing is loans. I don't care what happened to that person after I made that sale, because that's what it is. And more often than not, we see people entering into loan agreements that they shouldn't have, that wasn't properly vetted. Why? Because the person selling the loan was incentivized to do so. So that is something very important. Once again, I don't want to make a blanket statement, but it is real out there. And I've seen it too many times for it to be a coincidence. Having worked in the bank itself, I can tell you also we had daily targets to give out loans and credit cards, etc. It's normal. It's normal. The problem is, it's like if you come across someone is not capable of handling finances and you give them that loan, it's like giving a drug addict a shot of heroin
That's
or
what I'm
something.
thinking now, because some people are so impulsive with regards to their spendings, or they feel very insecure with their lifestyle, and they maybe got a new job and so forth. And now they want a new car, they want a new phone, they want the new thing to prove to themselves, I'm making it in life. And then you feed on that.
And I mean, it's so simple. I did it myself. I had a credit card which I didn't have to spend on, but because I had, I thought, oh, I can buy that thing, I can get that toy, just because it's there.
It's there.
And then afterwards you're like, oh, how did that balance get so much? Why am I paying every month? What was I doing? You don't even know what you bought. So trust me, I'm not only speaking about people out there. I loved it. I know what it's like. It's lekker to spend money. And you think at the time, oh, it's free money. They gave it to me anyway. You know, why would they give me a credit card of that limit? I didn't spend it. But afterwards, you start realizing, hang on, when I'm paying back, nothing seems to happen to this balance here. And I just seem to be, and once you get into that trap, if you don't stop it soon, it can dwindle, it can spiral out of control. So you need to recognize when you're falling into that debt trap, when debt becomes an attractive thing, until it no longer is, when you can't pay it.
I actually want to touch on that also. Some of the signs that maybe the listeners at home can maybe recognize, say, oh, you know what, I actually need a debt detox.
Okay, so there's a few signs, right? One of it is using one credit card to pay for another. The other one also very common. You're waiting for your credit card payment to go off so you can have money available again on your credit card. Why are you sitting at your limit? So let's just, a lot of people set at their limit. Their limit is 50,000. They now on 50,000. The debit goes off for 3,000. Now they've got 3,000 available. Now they want to use it again. So if you're always waiting for that debit and you want to use your card, so then that's one sign, right? Skipping debit orders, even if it's one, right? Or paying late regularly. I often have people, no, but I did pay. When did you pay? No, 3 days later, 4 days later. That's a sign. Only paying the minimum installments. If you can only afford to pay the bare minimum installment, that's also another sign. Meaning you're literally living month to month. This is a common one. Avoiding opening statements because you don't want to see. You're too afraid. Yes. Or messages. Or feeling anxious every time the phone rings. Or SMS come through. Or you're not looking at your emails. That's a sign. And when you are hit that point where you're no longer borrowing from banks and institutions, we're now going out to friends and family and loan sharks because the banks have told you you've had enough. Because even, trust me, even the most aggressive banks will tell you, hang on, you've had enough. Yeah. When that comes and you now go beyond it, then you know. So any one or more of these signs means that you need to seriously consider getting a debt detox.
So I'm actually thinking about this now because the credit card in order to pay off the other credit card kind of a thing. How does that work? So, was it the approval aspect to get the next credit card open?
Well, let me make it simple for you. So firstly, always start with your primary bank. So you go bank with one of the normal big banks, you have a check account. After a while, they say, hey, Anwar, you know, you did quite well. Here's a little credit card. Then you say, oh, we're paying your credit on time, let's increase the limit. Okay. Then another place say, oh, Anwar's quite good with credit card. Maybe we should also offer him a credit card so you get an SMS or an email or a phone call. Ah, Mr. Barnes, you've qualified for this, that, and the other. Of course, Mr. Barnes says, yes, of course, I'm so lucky to get this facility. Right? And what happens is, initially your credit score goes up and up and up, and you have great credit. And what does it mean? People will just give you loans. So now all of a sudden say, hey, my credit card close to getting maxed, but my score is okay. Let me try that. Oh, I got a Woolies account. Guess what? Woolies also giving me a credit card. Let me take that. Oh, I got, and then now you start piling it up. All of a sudden the one card is maxed, but now I say, hang on, I can take from the other card to pay that one, then I'm fine. So now you start playing this game. Now you start playing this game of musical chairs with your debt, right? So use one to pay the other. This one must get priority this month. If you're doing that, if you're playing musical chairs, now you know the problem is real.
But it's a mental game, eh? Because it's like, how am I going to pay this? My job is not allowing me to pay this off. This is my only resort now to play this musical chairs, isn't it? Like they find themselves in a situation, okay, I can't afford to pay it off. Okay, I messed up. But now I need this, I will maybe want this item. And then they just have to open it up. Like they convince themselves. Like, yes, I'm not gonna feel the pain now, I'm gonna feel it later, but I'm always gonna want to feel it later. So I'm always going to do it. So it's okay now because I'm okay now. I'm here, I can do it. Whatever happens tomorrow, it's okay.
My score is still okay, I can still get it 1 year.
So they're looking for some validation, like some crevice there of validation, just to make them go open up another account.
And the problem is that mindset just puts you further in trouble. That is the problem. So I found many times, and so the situation described is someone who's over indebted, and we'll talk a bit more about that, right? But when people find them over indebted, they do not realize that with professional help, you can actually find a way. You can actually get guidance. And it's think of if you have high blood pressure.
Yes.
If you're just going to try to manage it at home, I'll figure it out. I'll do this for my high blood. Instead of going to a doctor and get medication, eventually you're going to get a stroke. So trying to figure out your own situation when you yourself got yourself in a situation doesn't sound like the right solution. So you need to seek professional help if you are in that situation, right? So that is one of the big obstacles, is because of the shame, because of the guilt, because of not wanting people to know, you end up not asking for help. And sometimes asking for help is maybe asking a sister, I'm in this situation, what do you think I must do? Asking a parent, this is what should I do? And may give some input and say, maybe you should speak to this or that. That's the first thing, just getting it out, right? Because I find a lot of times, even the closest people to that person don't know what's going on. And I've seen this literally every day.
Wow.
The wife only finds out when the proverbial yes hit the fan. The family only find out when they come deliver a letter at the house. This is what's happening. I didn't want to tell anybody. I was going to figure it out. And I wish this was one movie, but this is a series.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. Yes, listeners, that's the voice of Anwar Barnes, certified financial planner, award-winning debt counselor and financial coach with 25 years of experience in banking, investments, and financial planning. Yes, listeners.
Helping you take charge of your money and your future. Visit thefinancialeducator.co.za.
Welcome back to Money Matters. I'm your host for this evening, Muhammad Ali Kathri, not Imtiaz. Unfortunately, I know he's been carrying the show for quite some time, especially with regards to the financial fitness series that we have here with Mr. Anwar. Alhamdulillah, a lot to do with bad debts. That stuff that you don't really need, but you want, or you convince yourself, look, I kind of need this. But we find that, people get the liquor payment, get the liquor job, came out of university, everything's liquor, and they feel like they deserve that new car, Mr. Anwar.
Not we.
We? Oh, yeah. Sorry. I don't have to.
Okay, so I'll explain because,
Okay.
Trust me, I'm speaking of experience, right? So, yes, experience of clients, but also my own experience of my own bad habits and how to have stopped and how to do that. So, and I know the temptations, and I know it's, you maybe go on a holiday, you plan to spend 5,000, but in your credit card snuck its way in and you spend more than that because when are you coming back?
Yes.
Those type of things.
Oh.
So trust me, it's something that we understand all too long, not just from clients, but also my own personal first-hand experience. Just when you when you have a reflection, you also like, no man, why are you doing this just for instant thrills on? And these days online shopping, it can be quite.
That's the worst. You're not seeing the physical money leaving your pocket now. You're not seeing Mandela leaving your pocket. Just a beep.
Or it's not you showering and getting dressed and going to Canal Walk. It's lying in bed at 11 o'clock at night and scrolling and, this thing look great. Let me just get this type of thing.
And it's now that season as well.
Oh, of course.
Never mind Christmas, but just like, you're on holiday and you're out there spending and so forth. Just one ping, ping, you just see it reflect. And some people don't even want notifications on their banking.
Actually do that. They say, I know clients that have blocked their notifications.
Look, I'm not going to say I wanted to do that, but I'm just saying, there are people that...
I've met them.
But it's so interesting because this is your finances, man. I mentioned it at the beginning of the show, and it's something that people, I don't want to say they take lightly, but it's almost like this limit, this credit score, that the amount that I have of 100,000, 200,000, they make it feel like this is mine, man. This is my money. This is my 200,000. Not to realize it's not actually yours. You owe that amount. You got the item that you wanted, but now there's an owing aspect that you need to owe that money within 55 days or so. And if not, it's always going to be over your head. And that actually come to the next question with regards to, the importance of tackling it early, or having that habit of tackling it as soon as possible. Not waiting until,
the wheels fall off.
Yeah, I'm not in a good space right now. It's valid why I'm spending the way I am and so forth. You start justifying, you start telling yourself, it's okay. It's not okay.
And that is very damaging because that bad self-talk is what prevents you from taking proper action.
So tackling it early. Well, what's the importance of tackling it early?
Yeah. Okay, so just before I get onto that, you mentioned about the credit card and thinking that that is your money. So often we think that when we have a credit card, we don't think it has a limit. We think it has a target. So instead of 100,000 limit, we have a target. We need to get to that, So just on that. So why it's important to deal with it early instead of waiting until everything falls apart, right? Because what is everything falls apart means now they're sending letters and knocking on doors. You have lawyers phoning you. That is what we mean by fall apart, right? Firstly, the earlier you act, the more options you have.
Okay.
Because when you come to a point where they're really talking about issuing summons and judgments, it makes things a bit tougher, right? So you want to act early before you get the phone calls and the notification. When you start to realize, hang on, man, these things are feeling a bit tight. Next, what you realize is the longer you wait, the more your interest accumulates. And that is the problem. You're borrowing 1 rand, but you're paying back 2. You never had 1 rand to begin with where you're getting 2. So the sooner you wait, if you wait too long, what happens? Something like called arrear interest, penalty interest, fees get added if you wait too late, right? And also early action can prevent that legal action, that judgments, that car repossessions, that home repossessions. I mean, I had instances where literally 3 days before a court date, I had to emergency meeting with the client because they weren't aware that the court was going to make a judgment to take their house. I said, do you know what's in this letter? I don't know, it's all I said, they're setting a date to take your house, you better act quickly. So you need to do before it happens, right? Also, very, very, very important, it protects your mental health as well as your relationships. If the arguments are in the family about the money, if the arguments are between the spouses about it already, then you know you need to do something. Interesting fact, financial distress is the #1 cause of divorce.
Wow.
In South Africa, in the US, more than infidelity. So let that just sink in how bad it is, right? Neither are pleasant, but imagine if that is more causes more divorces, right? And it's easier to steer a moving car than one that has already crashed. If you still have room to play, you can still do it. But if you are crashed, if they're coming for the house and they have already gone to judgment, all the stuff, it becomes incredibly difficult. Not impossible. So
it's very tough.
Very tough. So just so you know, I've seen cars that have been repossessed get unrepossessed. I've seen judgments get turned. However, it's not easy, and you need to have the right your ducks in a row, basically. So there's no such thing as a point of no return. I want to make it clear. But in order to prevent getting there, you want to act early.
Interesting. And for those listening at home now, Mr. Anwar, they're painting their own picture in front of them, but they're just struggling to know, where do I start? Do I start with the little one? Do I start with the big one? What should I write down? Where do they start?
Okay. So let's make this practical, right?
Okay.
The first thing now, if you are, is firstly, stop avoiding the numbers.
Okay.
So you want to know what are the numbers, right? And you want to make a full list of all your debts. So what are the numbers and what you need to write down? Firstly, who do you owe? Who are your creditors, right? What's the interest rate? Because a loan with 28% interest versus a loan with 10% interest, you might treat differently, right? What is your minimum installment? Include your credit cards, your store cards, your loans, your overdrafts, all areas. Now, I know this list can be scary, but it is a starting point of every plan. If you can't even do this list, then you know you actually need to do it. If you are scared to look at this list, then you know you need to do it. If you don't know what is on this list, you need to do it. So first, find out what exactly it is, who you owe, what you owe, how much you owe, what's the interest rate, how much you mean to pay every month. That's the first step, right? Now, say they don't know where to get this. Simple ways, get a credit report, right? So if they need to get a credit report, they can even request one from us. We mentioned on the show. You can email us. It's anwar@thefinancialeducator.co.za or info@thefinancialeducator.co.za. You can email us. Go onto our website, www.thefinancialeducator.co.za. Any of that, right? There you can get your free credit report. Once you get your credit report, it will show you what are your accounts, if there's any arrears, if there's any judgments. We can also help explain exactly what's going on. Because sometimes somebody gets a credit report and look at it like,
they don't know what's
going on here. So you maybe also want to sit with someone that can actually go through it and tell you what is going on. And it's often the first time people actually get the full picture. When they pull a credit report. Did I pay so much? I
Overwhelming.
didn't
That's
realize I have so many
Yeah.
so 16 accounts. I didn't realize. I just said yes every time somebody phones me.
Wow.
16 accounts. I've seen that, yes.
16.
16.
Wow, where do you start?
Think of your various store cards, think of credit cards, think of your
that you
various
forgot about. It's
lenders.
something that you forgot about.
Yes.
So you don't even shop there anymore. But now
Exactly.
it's just,
Exactly.
accumulating.
Exactly.
Wow. Wow. I'm just thinking now with regards to just how easy it is, because it's just one email that they send you. You know, they're just like, oh, you know, we've seen that you've done well with this, you know, with regards to your credit score, there's this new option open, or there's a new credit card that you can open up. And it makes you feel almost like, you know, I've done well, man. I will still do well if I open this up. Now you're doing with 2, now you're doing with 3, now you're doing with 4. Then you find yourself in a situation, in all of a bid, you find yourself in an emergency situation, and now you start looking at the credit. Instead of having, which you spoke about previously with regards to emergency fund.
Correct.
Now you're not looking at your emergency fund.
Because it doesn't
now.
exist.
It doesn't exist at all. Now you're looking at the credit, which is not your money, or paying something that's affecting your life. And it's going to continue affecting your life until you tackle it early.
Correct.
Wow, that's so interesting. And I think also with regards to, you know, obviously we have someone explaining, you know, the credit to you and explaining the whole picture to you.
Yes.
So I just wanted to maybe explain the difference between the snowball and the avalanche method in simple terms.
Okay.
You know,
So now that you know where your debt is standing, there's 2 methods of payoff that we
Okay.
have, right? Or strategies, I can call it. The one strategy is called the debt snowball method. The other one is called the avalanche method. So what's the difference? In the debt snowball method, you tackle the smallest debt first, right? So you tackle the debt from the smallest to the largest. Why? Say you owe 200,000 Rand on the loan. Seems overwhelming. How can I ever pay this off? But maybe I have another account that is 5,000 Rand. You know, I can do that.
gives you the momentum.
Gives you the momentum. So what happens is, firstly, you determine what is the minimum payment on all these accounts,
Okay.
right? Then after doing your budget from 2 weeks ago, you determine what extra money you have.
Okay.
Then you determine an extra amount to go to your smallest debt first. So you're paying the minimum on all and paying extra to the smallest debt. Once that smallest debt is paid, you then take that payment that went to the smallest debt plus the extra payment that you move it to the next one.
Okay.
Now when that is paid, you take, remember now it's the second debt, the first debt, and the extra, and that goes. And then as you move over to the bigger debts, what happens? Your payment is also getting bigger. So by the time you get to the big 200,000 debt, you are making a big payment because you've paid off all the other debts, and now all your pay, and now you see that actually moving. So that is the snowball method. It starts small and it accumulates as you pay off more and more debts until you come to the big one. You're rolling fast downhill. You squash that big one much quicker than what you thought, because now much more payment is going in that one, right? That's the debt snowball method. Start with the smallest to get momentum, to get motivation. Finish with the last one, the biggest one. The avalanche method is the more so-called mathematically correct method, where you determine which loan is costing me the most. In other words, which loan has the most interest rate, the highest interest rate. And you start tackling your debt from the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate. That is the so-called mathematically better way. You will end up paying this, but for some people, they need that momentum and motivation. Now, often your smallest loan tend to be the one with the highest interest, so you can combine the two, right? But choose one that works for you. If you are structured and rigid, and you say, I want to pay the less, then go the avalanche method, right? But you say, I need that motivation, go the snowball method, right? So remember, minimum payments on all, plus extra to the smallest on the snowball, and then plus extra to the one with the highest interest, and then you just carry on from there. So those are the 2 commonly accepted strategies or methods to pay off debt.
Before we go for the break, I just have one more question with regards to habits that needs to be broken. Things that you must not do if you're going to go with regards to the snowball avalanche. You want to get that crack going, you want to get the momentum going. There has to be a lifestyle change.
100%. So
what are some of the big things that people must stop doing?
okay. So what you must stop doing is spend money and not know where it goes.
Okay.
Right. So what does that mean? Whenever first you have to plan where your money goes. So you have to have a budget set up, right? But planning is just one part of it. Now you also need to track. So you need to know, the first most important, you need to know exactly where every cent goes, right? Once you know where exactly every cent goes, you can also identify where money is being wasted.
Yes.
Right? And waste doesn't necessarily mean something unnecessary. It means just buying a bit more than what you needed to.
Yes.
Or just getting some extra thing that you didn't actually use, right? Or that extra cup of coffee that you realize, hang on, I'm spending way too much there, right? So you want to see where can you clean up at waste. You want to plan where your money. So you need to have an idea of where your money is meant to go and where is it actually going, right? If you don't know that, you cannot have a plan. Now, once you establish that, now you say, hey, okay, I've tracked money is going here, there. I can save a bit there. I can cut down there. There's my extra that I can pay towards my debt, right? Now, to be quite honest, there's sometimes where you go and go look at the numbers and you realize, hang on, the numbers ain't numbering no matter what you do. So in that case, there is also ways and means. So it's not a matter of if I'm going to see a number where my income isn't enough to cover that nothing can be done. There is help that can be done, and we'll discuss that. But some people are afraid to find out because they're afraid that is what they're going to see. So if I don't find out, I'm not going to see that I'm actually not earning enough to pay my debt. I'm better off living in the delusion that I'm doing okay, using one credit pay the other, because you don't know. Because the moment I find out what happens now, I have a certain responsibility to myself. I know the situation, I need to do something. But most people don't want to. Why? It means I'm going to have to stop spending money on nice stuff. It means I have to can't buy as many coffees. It means I can't go to takeaways. It means I can't entertain. This is what it means, right? That is just one example. I mean, I can't buy things I want to do. So you start feeling that restriction. I can't maybe buy the car I want to, or maybe I even have to sell my car. Sometimes the answer is you have to sell your car. Now, you know how many people are willing to sell and down their car.
No.
They're going to say it's too embarrassing. What are the people going to say? But if you're sitting with a 10,000 month car payment, surely downgrading to something that's 5,000 month will help. But what are the people going to say? So there's so many barriers, and a lot of it has to do with I'm going to be ashamed. What are people going to say, etc. Right? Now, when you spoke about the habits, besides the tracking and the spending, you need to, if there is anything which I call bad habits that you can't fix, like impulsive spending or let's use impulsive spending as an example. Very common, right? It can be something as simple as impulsive spending on toys, hobbies, going out. Oh, let's get something to eat now. 2,000 and meal.
You always pass a coffee shop.
Always pass coffee, yes.
And then you always find yourself there. And then
different people have different reasons why they have impulsive spending, right? You have emotional spending. Different people have different reasons why they spend that. So if your spending is driven by impulse, if your spending is driven by emotion, coupled with not knowing what's going on, then you have a potentially, if not a really bad situation. So you see, it's not just one thing. It's a whole lot of things you have to bring together as a whole. There's emotional aspects, there's habit aspects, there's the financial number aspects, right? There's the technical aspects, what is your interest rate? All those things need to come together. And you need to put it on pen and paper. You need to look inside yourself and say, okay, what am I going to do about this? Now that I know what's going on, now that I know what drives me to do stuff or to spend I shouldn't, now I need to rectify it. But if you don't know what your triggers are, if you're not having control of your spending, if you're not having a budget, trying to take care of your debt is kind of putting the cart before the horse.
Yes.
You're not going to do it successfully. So you need to find out what your habits are that's putting you in that situation. How do you fix those habits? And what exactly is the situation? How do you get out of it?
Oh, so interesting. Yes, listeners, that was the voice of Mr. Anwar Baaron, sir, breaking down everything with regards to budgeting and understanding bad debt. Yes, we're going to go now for a quick ad break, and when we come back, Money Matters. I have in studio Mr. Anwar Baaron, and for those that have been listening from the beginning, alhamdulillah, a lot to think about. You know, it's the boogeyman under the bed that we don't want to face, but he's always lurking, he's always in our room, and we know he's there, but we don't want to face him. But it's something that has to be done if you want to attain financial freedom, if you want to, you know, get out of that mental space of always worrying about it, you know, affecting your family and so forth. But Mr. Anwar, I just want to touch on something with regards to a debt counselor. Because what some people think, and I also thought about this, is that the debt counselor is someone that's going to try and set your kop on. He's going to try to bamboozle you into thinking that the problem is really bad when it's not. You rely on them, and then you must keep paying them. This is what a lot of people think, and I also thought about that. Like, they're trying to make the situation worse than what it actually is. They don't truly care about you and your finances. They're just trying to eat commission. So long as you were them, then they're going to keep eating commission. If we can just maybe break that down, you know, for the listeners who are, you know, not too sure what debt counseling really is. Can you give a simple explanation?
Okay, so what debt counseling is, right? First, you must understand it's a legal process under the National Credit Act, right? And who's it designed to help are those so-called over-indebted clients where your income is not sufficient to cover both your living expenses and your loans, right? What we then do is we then say, hang on, how much can you afford to pay? So if your loans was 15,000, but you can only afford to pay 10, we can then negotiate with the creditors that you pay a lower amount. How we do that is by negotiating a lower interest rate and possibly extending the term. So ultimately, through debt counseling, it's a legal process, right? We reduce your monthly payments based on what you can afford, and the way we do it is through lower interest and possibly longer installments up to 5 years. You also get protection against creditors, repossession, all those things. Now, where the problem comes is because there's so many people in debt. Unfortunately, like any industry, you also get people looking to get the opportunity on that.
Yes.
And wherever there's opportunity, you're also going to get sometimes bad players, right? Now, if you look at one of the things often associated, and let me make clear, it doesn't mean that if something is a call center that is bad, but the industry has also had a lot of call centers where any Tom, Dick and Harry can kind of wake up and you have somebody phoning you, oh, we can reduce a loan, oh, this, right? The problem is you don't always know who you're speaking to at the other end of the phone, right? And what we also realize is that people want to deal with someone personal, face-to-face, because you're speaking about something confidential, and a lot of times it's maybe not that trust. So you have all those questions, that mistrust questions, because who am I speaking to? Who is this person? Are they telling me the truth? Is it a scam? And it can very well be legitimate most of the times. But what we found is that because of a few bad apples, people have become distrusting of the industry, of the process. And I must make it clear, a few bad, right? What we then decide, hang on, in order to build that trust, we will see you in person, face to face. Whether it be at our venue that we use at Fairbairn Cafe, so we utilize their venue, whether we come to you, right? We come and we see really how we can help you to get out of debt properly, but not just lower your payments, also walk the journey with you, also help you improve the habits. So the big thing that we do is to say, firstly, debt counseling is a valid process, right? But we understand that there is skepticism. What we say is, we will see you face to face. You will know who you are dealing with when getting help. And we feel that just makes people a bit more open to engage in the conversation. So if you don't feel you want to engage via a phone call, or if you want to see a real person, come speak to us, and you can see that it does work for someone who is over indebted.
So interesting. And I wish we had more time, Mr. Anwar, unfortunately. But just a final message for the listeners there at home with regards to debt detox. You might have been listening to the show and so forth, but just to quickly wrap up everything for them, the concept.
Very, most important is remember you are not alone.
Okay.
Right? So do not try to tackle it alone. Speak to someone. If you don't feel comfortable speaking to a family member, email us, WhatsApp me, 082 776 8330. WhatsApp me, Mr. Anwar, I need to chat to you. Right? 082 776 8330. That's my personal number that I'm giving there. Contact me. Remember that good people can end up in bad situations. You're not a bad person for being in debt. You're not a terrible person. You're not a failure. All it is, you can't afford to debt. That's it. No judgment on you as a person, right? And often it is the circumstances. It's not the character. So don't take it, I know it's very hard not to, but don't take it personally. Don't think that people will judge you personally. Look at the matter, which is the debt and the detox you need to undergo, rather than you as a person saying, oh, I'm a failure, oh, I've done this, etc., etc. And asking for help is a sign of responsibility. It's a sign of strength rather than a sign of failure. And remember, the sooner you speak to someone, whether it's a trusted family member, whether it's myself, whether it's one of my colleagues, the better, the easier things are going to turn around, right? So break the silence, speak about it, leave the shame behind. That is my message.
Beautiful, beautiful. Separate the debt from the person, in other words. Don't always blame yourself thinking it's me. That, just trying to combine the two, separate it. Take it on as an enemy. Stop it hurting yourself in that regard. Listeners, that was the voice of Mr. Anwar Barnes, a certified financial planner, award-winning debt counselor and financial coach with 25 years of experience in banking, investments, and financial planning. Mr. Anwar, wish we had more time, as I mentioned.
We always do.
Thank you so much for coming into the studio.
It's an absolute pleasure.
And sharing that valuable knowledge for all the listeners at home. Shukran so much.
That's an absolute pleasure. Shukran and salam to you and to the listeners.